Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. Echo, echo, can you hear me? Those of you that are listening on YouTube and Twitter, I think, have fixed the echo problem. So if you can confirm once we are all talking here. But I got comedian Joe Bartnick alongside and Josh Yohe with The Athletic. And we've got a lot of playoff hockey to talk about. We've got the Bluesers, as Matthew says there, about to take it and move Winnipeg on to their offseason.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The Jets aren't going down without a fight, apparently.
Did they just score?
They did.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, before we preview everything and recap the first round, Mike Sullivan is a New York Ranger. So we want to give you that. We'll give you thoughts and opinions on that. And we'll also get the latest from the man on the inside, which is Josh Yohe, who Joe and I come just to get the inside information from Josh about who the Penguins are looking at, who they might want to have alongside as their new coach for the rest of Sidney Crosby's career. But gentlemen, Joe, I'll throw it to you first. Mike Sullivan in New York, not a surprise at all, is it?
No, not a surprise at all. We knew it was going to happen. It's just I woke up this morning and I realized it was really going to happen. And that Mike Sullivan is now the actual coach of the Rangers, and we're going to have to look at him. And it's just sad. You know, it's like your girlfriend's dating somebody new and probably right now better looking than you. With a better chance of winning, that's for sure. The only thing I can take away that I'm happy about is he hired John Tortorella. So at least Tortorella won't be on television next season. I mean, I know the cameras will be on him constantly as they were at Four Nations, but at least I won't have to hear him talking on TNT or ESPN. So that's the only good news I take away from Sully. I wanted Sully to land on his feet, but now it's for real, isn't it, Josh?
Is that Torts News official, by the way? I don't know if it is or not. I didn't know if I know.
Oh, okay. Then maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
I know ESPN had reported that, but some other people were reporting that it wasn't necessarily true. So I honestly don't know.
Well, in God, Josh Yohe, and Elliot Friedman, I trust. So if you didn't report it, then I it's not happening.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me. They're really close friends. Yeah, you know, Sullivan. Let's put it this way: we all have known for a long time the Rangers, especially Chris Drury, their general manager. From what I've heard anyway, like borderline obsessed with Mike Sullivan being the coach of the Rangers. And I know the financial arrangements haven't been made official, but some of the figures I heard, it sounds like Sully's going to be making around $7 million a year. And that's unprecedented for an NHL coach. That's hard money to turn down. And when I look at the Rangers job, we know the locker room has its problems there. I think that was obvious for anyone who watched them play last season, quite honestly, and from some of the stories that we've heard. So he has to iron that out, but he's going to have something in New York that he hasn't had for 6 or 7 years, and that's a good goaltender. Mike Sullivan has been betrayed by goaltending for years. Now, is that the only thing that went wrong in Pittsburgh? No. Is he above blame? No. But this isn't going to be Tristan Jarry or Casey DeSmith as his starting goaltender in New York. He's got one of the best goalies in the world. Don't think for a second that doesn't make a huge difference.
Hey, Josh, his backup goaltender, Jonathan Quick, gave my mistress 2 rings and has played phenomenal the last 2 years and has kind of saved the bacon up there a couple times when, the number one guy kind of faltered. And I also think he gets the flu occasionally when he doesn't want to face a team. I really feel that in my bones sometimes. I think he shies away, Igor, from different matchups sometimes. So Quick has played more games than he probably should have, and he's played great up there. I think Sullivan's the perfect choice because I remember vividly the Mike Johnson era. We were in disarray, and if you take away the 2 Hall of Famers, Mount Rushmore, we had considerably less talent than the Rangers have now. I think it's an easy job for Sullivan to put a couple pieces together and go on a big run. I've said all year I think the Rangers are going to be better next year. I didn't even think they'd have Sullivan as the coach. I mean, they're easily a playoff team next year with Sully.
Yeah, no, I'm not really thrilled that he landed there. And I see Maggie putting a comment down there that's saying she hates that he went to the Rangers. And I But by the way, Joe, you're right about Shesterkin. He gets the flu against certain people. Like we all saw when he waved bye-bye whenever the Penguins were leaving the ice. It's like, nobody talks more trash than a coward whenever the other people are leaving. So I'll put it that way. But yeah, Josh, I don't know. I mean, if there's somebody that it's going to turn around and they kind of need that alpha male that the Penguins needed in 2016.
If there's one thing he can do more than anything else, let's fix a locker room. He really, I think, specializes in communication and how direct he is with people. When he took over the Penguins, the very first thing he did after his first practice, he met individually with Crosby, Malkin, Kessel, and Fleury and Letang. And he wanted to get to know those guys immediately to see what made them tick. And he obviously did so more than any coach that they've ever had. He knows how to get through to people, to people who can be difficult. I assure you, Phil Kessel and Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, that they have difficult personalities, that they're not easy to deal with. They have big egos. And he got through to them immediately. So if there are problems in that New York locker room, and it's obvious that there are, he will fix that. So, yeah, I mean, I could certainly see the Rangers being better next season. But we also know there is something dysfunctional about that organization. And that is a really old roster. That's one thing about them, especially their forwards. Like, they're all in their 30s. That's not a young hockey team at all. So I suspect they will be better next season. Probably a playoff team. I would agree with that. But who knows? They're kind of like a high ceiling, low floor team to me, because a lot of things can go bad there too. So I'm just curious to see how that all works out. The Rangers are always kind of a soap opera, but I applaud the Rangers. I think he's the perfect coach for their situation. I don't think they could have done any better.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say I heard Tim Benz was echoing what Mark Madden said on Friday, because Benz was in for Madden, and he said that I think Madden pointed out he thinks in 2 years, let's say when Crosby's contract is ending, the Penguins might be worse than the Rangers still, but they're on the way up, and the Rangers are on the way down just because of the age and multiple other factors. I don't know, Joe, what do you think of that?
It's such a topsy-turvy world in the NHL. I believe like Sully. I believed we were, decent goaltending and a couple decent defensemen away from being in the Metro Division playoff picture. So, I don't think we're as far down as maybe Dubas thinks we are, but Dubas is hell-bent on this total rebuild, and that's what scares me, because I'm not comfortable with him exactly yet. I don't, like I said last week on the show, I don't blame him for Toronto's woes, but let's see what he's done. I'm not comfortable as I have been since Craig Patrick was the GM. This is the worst I've felt about us as an organization.
Yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable, uneasy times. Listening, Joe, I felt really good during Dubas's press conference last week, and then after you said that on the show, and then I heard the clips coming back on DVE all week, I felt worse and worse every single time, and I just kept thinking about you, going, this is like probably the worst it's been since the 80s. I don't know. The direction of this franchise is up in the air, to say the least.
I just think, and I went Josh to speak because he knows more than anybody. I just was like, if you really believe that Sully is this great of a coach, Sully can't hang in there for 2 more years, and then he can coach McGrody and Koivunen and Sid's still here, and we get some actual defensemen. Like, he's still going to be a great coach in 2 years, and who are we going to pick?
No, that's fair. And by the way, some breaking news: the Winnipeg Jets have scored twice with the goaltender pulled. They just tied the game with 1 second left.
Oh my God!
1.6 seconds left, going to overtime.
For cross promotion, my puck-off co-host is sitting behind me watching the game on his big screen, and I heard him cheer.
Wow! Yeah, so there's some wild hockey games, and we'll get to the Dallas-Colorado Game 7, which is an unbelievable game as well. So anyway, but back to the Penguins. Pardon me for getting distracted there for a moment. The Sullivan thing is interesting because, as I said on our emergency podcast on Monday when this news broke, like, Mike Sullivan didn't want to leave. Like, I don't think that was his preference. It wasn't his idea. To even say that it was mutual, I think is probably a little disingenuous. I know the Penguins had to say that, and it looks better that way, and whatever. But I don't think he wanted to leave, but I think he wanted a more urgent rebuild than what he was seeing. And I think it all ties back to Sidney Crosby. I think Mike Sullivan sees the level he's playing at, and he's like, Jesus, I don't want to waste this. Like, he's not going to be able to do this forever. But if he's still playing at this level in a year or in 2 years, if we can, make a couple of splashes in free agency and develop some of these kids real quick, like, we can be better than you think, Kyle. And I think Dubas is like, yeah, maybe, but we're going to do it the slow way here because I want this to be a great team even long after he's gone, which I understand. I don't think Kyle's wrong necessarily, but I also see where Sully was coming from. And it's a shame that it worked out this way, but maybe it's for the best if they had, different visions on how this team was, going to go moving forward. Okay, then.
Right, but there's nothing. If you've been here, Josh, every week, and all our great fans and listeners know, the only thing I love more than a power forward is how much even as much as I love power forwards, the thing I hate most is kicking down the can in draft picks in a rebuild. No. Every season we should be going for the play. The bar is low. We're not in the Atlantic. We're not in the Central. We're in the lowly Metro. If you don't think we can compete against regular season Rod and the New Jersey Devils, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's what kills me is they're so close. They're a competent goaltender and practicing the shootout away from being in the playoffs this year.
And draft picks. That's why I love the fact that he did get Koivunen and he did get McGrody. Like, I'm happy about that. But and it was like almost you shouldn't have even done that if you don't want me to believe, Mr. Dubas, that we're not close.
Well, I have mixed feelings. I don't know if they are that close, really. I mean, it's easy to say that, but then you could say, there's 2 seasons in a row they went on these really ridiculous hot streaks in March when the season was pretty much over. Like, if you look at their record, like from October through February, they were terrible. And then they get hot late in the year. So what do those hot streaks mean? Like, the seasons kind of mirrored one another. And honestly, I think even from Dubas' standpoint, I don't know how seriously he took his team getting hot late in the year. You can look at it either way. And I don't think anybody wants some 5-year rebuild. And when you see what the Kings have done, real quick to get good again, and what the Capitals have done, you see that it doesn't need to take a long time, and it probably shouldn't. And I guarantee you Mike Sullivan referenced those teams when he talked with Kyle. There's no doubt that he did.
Josh, if I was at that meeting, I just know I would have agreed with Sully.
Yeah.
If I'm judging the debate, but 2 years ago I said, we were competent goaltending and a power play away. Then we got a power play. Now it's like we're competent goaltending, but I'm just scared. I know it's gonna suck seeing Sully coaching the Rangers, and we have some kid from college that hasn't even, he doesn't even need a shave.
That certainly seems to be what Kyle was leaning towards, surprisingly to me. And Josh, I mean, what are you hearing on the ground level in the organization? It's not per your article in The Athletic, everybody should read if you don't already. That it seems like it's going to be a while. But what are you hearing? What's the latest?
Yeah, first things first, and we should probably mention this as well. Speaking of breaking news, the World Championship start in Sweden next week, and Kyle Dubas is the general manager of Team Canada. And he's going to have a captain because Sidney Crosby just announced that he's going to play in the World Championships, which I'm not shocked because he's been skating every day at the Penguins facility. It's like, why is he skating? I know he likes to stay in shape. But so he's going to go play for Canada over there, which I think is interesting. He's going to be over there with Kyle during a time in which Kyle is trying to figure out who the next coach is. So Sid and Kyle are going to be together in Sweden. I'm sure they will have a conversation or two about the direction that this thing goes in. As for who they're looking for, this is going to take a while. I fully expect this to take a month or so. We might not know who the Penguins coach is until early June, if I had to guess. Part of that is because Kyle is going to be in Sweden, so it's a little harder to meet in person with people when you have that commitment over there. I think there's a perception. A lot of people assume he's going to go with a young guy, somebody, a college coach or a junior coach who has no NHL experience, because Kyle comes across as the type who's not going to go with a recycled hockey guy. And that might be true. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. What I can tell you is concerning one of the big names and a personal friend of the show, Rick Tocchet. As we suspected, and I have heard this from people that I trust, Philadelphia wants Tocchet to be its coach. There's no question. He's their number one choice. The job is his if he wants it. I think he knows that. And I think he's willing to take that job. He is certainly popular in Philadelphia, just like he is here in Pittsburgh. From what I've been told, though, he really likes Kyle. They work together a little bit on the Four Nations face-off staff for Canada. Kyle asked Rick Tocchet to be his coach for the World Championships this month in Sweden, and Tocchet turned him down. He didn't really want to turn him down, but he knew there was a shitstorm about to take place in Vancouver, and I think he said, "Hey, I got to take care of my personal situation here. I can't be over in Sweden right now." So obviously Kyle likes him, and from what I hear, Rick likes Kyle. Long story short, from what I've been told, I think Rick is going to wait on the Penguins to see if they want to talk with him, to see if they want to make him an offer, to see what the direction is for the team moving forward. I don't think Rick wants some 5-year rebuild either. But before he goes to Philly, I think he'll listen to the Penguins. And I'm very interested to see just how badly Kyle Dubas wants him. I don't know if he does or not, but I suspect that we'll talk.
This is reverse Yager watch. I tweeted right when it happened. I said, we're on Tocchet watch. Hashtag Tocchet watch. The other interesting thing, and a fan listener, thank you for chiming in, made a point that I'm sure Biz will be making in 10 minutes. You know who else will be over there in Sweden with Mr. Crosby? Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah. How about that?
That'd be an interesting dinner. Yeah. Dubas, Nate Dogg, and Sir Sidney. Who's picking up that check?
By the way, Connor Bedard is not going, apparently, which is interesting. The two old guys are going to represent Canada, but not Bedard. I just thought that was interesting.
Josh, not to make this, not to throw dirt on the kid, but is he one of the 18 best guys left?
Probably for this tournament, I would think. Certainly not for the Olympics or something like that. But yeah, I would have certainly thought so. I'm sure he has his reasons. I have mixed feelings on this tournament. Like, I really don't care about this tournament that much. I don't think many people in North America do. I know it's a much bigger deal in Europe, but I'm really glad Sid's going, Joe. The way he's playing right now, like, I just want to see him play hockey some more. I'll wake up at 6 a.m. to watch him play in these games. So why not? He is playing at such a high level. Why wouldn't he go and play? And he said something really interesting. He said it a couple of times late in the season. People keep saying, like, how are you still playing this great, Sid? You're so old, basically, is how people ask the questions. And he says he doesn't like to take breaks anymore. Like, he can't. If he takes a month off from skating, like, he feels that his legs don't feel the same. It takes his hands longer to come back. So he just wants to keep going. He just wants to keep playing. He thinks if he just keeps working and keeps going, that's the best thing for his game moving forward. He said, it sucks. Getting old, I got to keep working harder to stay at this level. But I think that's the thing. He didn't want to go 6 months without playing an important hockey game. So he can play all of May now. That really cuts his summer down. And I think that's part of what he's thinking, just in terms of being ready for next year. He'll probably be more sharp when he arrives to training camp if he plays in this tournament.
There's some great players going over there. Between the Avalanche guys and the Tampa Bay Lightning guys, there's a lot of good players going. Should be a fun tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we know DV's Mike Pizzuto will be watching with his USA banner in the morning.
Well,
yeah, and Sid kind of, whenever you mentioned that, and then somebody tweeted the morning of Dubas's press conference, said, "Oh, Sid's it might have been one of your colleagues at the Athletic said Sid's on the ice right now." And so I'm thinking about those two things. I'm thinking about when you go to the beach and you see the old guys who are in ridiculous shape, but they're on vacation and they're still working out. And I'm as a young guy, I was like, why are you doing that? You're on vacation. Let it go. And maybe it is when you're older, you got to keep it going. Otherwise, you're going to lose it. So yeah, I'm excited to see them over there. I'm excited to see what Sid can do in the tournament. I'm curious too, outside of Tocchet, who do you guys think? I mean, names have been thrown around. Is there anyone that you guys see in particular that you would want them to take a look at? Name the names that they are going to look at, but anyone that you're thinking of that maybe the average fan isn't.
I am not. I know it's probably not going to be talked for many reasons. I don't have my toes into the collegiate level or the junior level. They usually bring up the Wilkes-Barre guy, but they said he's not coming up. So I really have no idea what Kyle's going to do. I just hope he gets someone that Sid and Gino respect.
Well, that's important, especially with Sid. Maybe this is Gino's last year, so maybe it's not as big of a deal with him. But I'll tell you this. I know there's a big segment of the fan base that wants them to bring in a young guy, some guy from college or juniors. And because we assume that guys like that work better with younger players. And I'm sure there's something to that. But I'm telling you, Mike Johnston had never had NHL coaching experience. And I don't think the Penguins' big guys respected him from day one. In fact, I know they didn't. I mean, they were friendly with him because they're nice guys. But deep down, I don't think they ever really were buying into a word he said. If you're going to bring in a young guy with that group still here, that's a problem. And you might say, well, they're old. The future's what matters. Well, yeah, it is. But I assure you, you're talking about the big three. I assure you their influence in the locker room is a really big deal. Okay, they're the guys. People follow them. And if they don't like the coach, then that's an issue. So who are they going to bring in? I don't know. One name I can tell you, Drew Bannister, who coached the Bluesers for a little bit earlier this season. In fact, he's a guy that I've heard Kyle likes. He's got Sault Ste. Marie ties, of course. He played for Sault Ste. Marie. So you always have to have the Sault Ste. Marie tie with anybody that Kyle likes. That's one guy that I have heard. There are certainly going to be others. But there's no name that's really popped to the very top of the list yet, other than Tocchet. I mean, Tocchet's the only one because of his history here, because we know he and Crosby have a great relationship. Because of those reasons, I have to think that he and Dubas will speak. And I've had a lot of people say, I don't want Tocchet. We need somebody young for the young players. Like, who says Rick Tocchet can't work with young players? I suggest you talk with Brian Rust and Connor Sheary and tell them about when they got to the NHL as rookies, what Rick Tocchet did for their careers. I can still see him on the ice after practice every day working with those guys. I think he's very good with young players. So I don't think he's all that bad of a candidate at all.
Dakota Joshua. I think he played pretty good in Vancouver. Yeah. And it's not just Mike Johnson. I mean, these guys that come up, they're used to talking to kids. Look at Dave Haxtell in Philadelphia. He was just as clueless.
Terrible.
I mean, yeah, terrible. I mean, the few press conferences I've been to, you could just tell when he walked on the podium, he was not a leader of men.
No.
Mike Sullivan, leader of men. Craig Berube, leader of men. I just want Rick Tocchet, leader of men. I just want a leader of men. I don't want a guy that's used to yelling at 14-year-old boys from Canada.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point. And I will make the argument. I've seen, like Josh, you mentioned, a lot of people say it's about building for the future. I'll be completely honest. The next 4 years with Sidney Crosby are probably more important for the Penguins than the next 20 years. Like, if you take the next 20 years, what's the most important? It's the last 4 that you have Sid, 3, 4, whatever it is. Like, I don't know. This makes me go back to, like, all right, bring Sullivan back. Like, what will we need? Because it's like, when now? It's just, and you don't know that you're getting the next generational talent. It's not always from Lemieux to Crosby. It's not always from Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Like, that doesn't happen all the time. So you might have a lull for a while, and you might be for a while. So like damn it, you got Sid right now. Like, what are you doing?
No, that's right. I mean, listen, one way or the other, you have to hire the right coach. And listen, maybe David Carl, who's everyone's favorite college coach, maybe he is great. And who knows? I will say this though, and this is interesting that Sid's going to Sweden for the Worlds. He's spending a lot of time with Kyle Dubas in Sweden. A lot of time. I have to think they're having dinner a couple of times during this tournament, and they're making some decisions. For all I know, maybe Kyle interviews somebody over there, and maybe people fly over to Sweden to sit down with him and Sidney Crosby. There's going to be time to do it. And that might seem weird if Sid were to sit in on something like that, but he's Sidney Crosby. It's a little different with him. And even Sid is not one to flex his muscles about hiring coaches or firing coaches. He likes to be in the loop. He likes to know what's going on. And just because his contract expires in 2 years doesn't mean he retires in 2 years. I'm of the belief that if he stays healthy and if he's still playing at this level, I think he'll play for a couple of years after that. I really do. I could see him play till 41, 42, something like that. So what's the average NHL coaching life expectancy? Like 3 years? I don't even know what it is off the top of my head. So yeah, I mean, whatever Sid thinks is important and how a coach gets, works with older guys is important. It's not all about the kids. It's about mixing the kids with Sidney Crosby, and you need the right personality for that.
I have one funny point and then just one real point. Now, one funny point is, let's just have fun next year. Let's just hire Barbecue Bruce, score a bunch of goals and not play defense. Letang and Carlson will love it. It'll be fun. It'll be fun for everybody.
Letang will be like, this is the best coach I've ever played for. Every game is 8-7. It's fine.
Yeah, barbecue. Enjoy the cuisine of Pittsburgh. Now, here's a real point I want to make. A guy from the minor leagues is fine with me as Spencer Carberry, because he's used to working with paid professionals. College guys scare me because they're used to having over their heads that they're in college and they're not paid professionals. And I usually don't like cross-referencing sports, but how many college coaches in football make it in the NFL? Nick Saban, the greatest college coach ever, didn't make it in the NFL. How many college basketball coaches make it in the NBA? Hardly any. Coach K knew better. He's like, I don't even want to coach the Lakers because I know it's a loose proposition. So I want guys that are used to dealing with paid professional men.
That's a really good point, Joe. It never works. I mean, you see it time and time again. If Nick Saban can't get Rick Pitino in the NBA, it's terrible.
It happens time and time again. It does. I mean, it's a very relevant point, Joe. It is. And just because I hear, we don't want the same recycled coach. Well, it depends on who the recycled coach is. Craig Berube is a recycled coach. I'd want him coaching my team.
Yeah.
I think Rick Tocchet's a really good coach. Like, look at the teams he's had over the years. Rick hasn't had a whole lot of talent as a head coach. Like, what he did last year in Vancouver was spectacular, and I'm not sure I'd blame him for much of what happened there this season. So, there are some recycled coaches, like you mentioned, Hackstall. I wouldn't want that guy coaching my team. But if you get the right one, Mike Sullivan's a recycled coach. I think a lot of people would take him coaching their team. So, just because you want it to be a new guy and a fresh guy and a young guy, that doesn't mean that's always the right choice. And you got to be careful.
John Hines recycled, did a hell of a job for Minnesota this year.
Yeah, he's a good coach. I mean, he's a really good coach. So, and there's a lot of good coaches out there that have never won a Stanley Cup. Just because you haven't won the cup doesn't mean anything, And somebody just tweeted Todd Nelson. Flux CC just sent us a message. Yeah, Todd Nelson's an interesting choice. He's been a great AHL coach for a long time. Now he's a guy that might command some respect, even though he's never been an NHL head coach. I think he's been an assistant coach. So I don't know. As I always say, Kyle Dubas, like he never has easy decisions to make. It wasn't going to be easy when he took over this job because of the phase the Penguins are in right now. And man, I stand by that. It's not an easy spot he's in.
Here's someone I just thought about. How about Elaine Nazardine?
I did that.
Great assistant.
My mind last night. Watching him on the bench.
He's a little busy right now, but yeah.
Right. Well, when he's done winning the cup, because we picked the Stars, he can be just in time when Doobie gets back from Sweden.
True. He's an interesting guy. He's
former Penguin.
Knows what he's doing. Yeah, briefly.
Yeah, scored his first NHL goal up in Montreal. I mean, that's you can't.
Sid set that up, I think.
I think so.
Yes.
I think a young Sid set up that goal. See, there's a relationship there, right? So yeah, I mean, there's people out there that are available. I mean, there really are. But you're only as good as your roster too, and that still to me is the Penguins' biggest issue. And I see somebody sending us messages about the defensive core. Yeah, no kidding. That's the worst blue line in hockey. That's going to make a lot of coaches look bad if you bring back this blue line. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, and we should ask Bill Neofis who he wants. But I will say this: it's still jarring to give up one of the two or three best coaches in hockey.
And I can assure you, our great sponsor is a huge Rick Tocchet fan. I already know that. He's been bombarding me all week. What's going on with Talk? What's going on with Talk? We got to get Talk here.
It's amazing. And as we transition to the NHL talk, we will, Bill Neofus. It's amazing that he probably doesn't have Rick Tocchet as a client. Maybe he should.
Maybe he does.
We could arrange that, but if anyone's going to know, you would think Bill Neofus. I mean, Bill, for those that don't know, I did get to go out to lunch with Bill one time, and Bill knows everybody in the Pittsburgh area. He's on the who's who, and I mean, he knows Carrot Top. So, but yeah, I'm sure Rick Tocchet is high on his list of people he'd like to replace Mike Sullivan, isn't he, Josh?
No, he really is. He is a particularly big Rick Tocchet fan, and well, who isn't really? Like I always say, I'm not impartial myself when I talk about Rick. He's literally one of my favorite people in hockey. So yeah, from a personal standpoint, selfishly, yes, come to town, Rick. That would be great. But yeah, no matter who the Penguins' next coach is, Bill Neofus will be a supporter of his because he's not just the best insurance man in Pittsburgh. He's also a big-time Pittsburgh Penguins fan. But as we tell you every week, he's our great sponsor. And if you need any kind of insurance, I don't care what it is. We talk about it all the time. Car insurance, you need apartment insurance, you name it, anything you can think of. Give our guy a call. Not just Bill, but also his staff. They're the nicest people in the world. He goes out his way to hire nice people. He takes that seriously. So it's at neofisinsurance.com. That's NEOFES insurance.com. I'll give you the phone number. It's easier to do it that way. 412-364-3388. Give our man Bill a call. He will hook you up.
Thank you, Bill. He will hook you up for sure, and hopefully you can talk to him about Rick Tocchet being a Penguins coach. So from your lips,
free tornado insurance from Bill, Rick, if you come.
Yeah, good Lord. Yeah, I know. Well, you need it now in Pennsylvania, apparently. Yeah. So let's get into the NHL playoffs as the St. Louis Blues and Winnipeg Jets are in overtime currently, for those of you listening on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day it is. But let's start with the other series out west. We'll go we'll look at the Kings losing to the Edmonton Oilers. And Joe, I believe you said it when it happened that might have been the worst challenge in NHL history. And good Lord, for the Kings could have swept the Oilers. They could have very easily swept the Oilers. And instead, they went out with a whimper in Game 6. That series turned on a head on that moment, didn't it, Joe?
Oh, absolutely did, Corey. What's funny is they also could have lost in 5. They just narrowly filled the nose second goal in Game 1, or Jesus could have pulled the miracle in Game 1. An absolute disgrace from the management of the Kings. Not only the challenge, but just shortening your bench to make Gavrikov and Doughty. Gavrikov is old. He's played hard minutes. He's in his 30s. Doughty just came back from major knee surgery and is an old man. And it wasn't playing beer league hockey for 34 minutes a night. It was chasing Jesus and Leon. They shortened the bench. They only played 4D. They only played 9 forwards. What happens? In Game 6, he plays Clark. Clark gets a goal. He should have played Clark and Spence the whole time. And then my buddy, Big Q, I don't know if it was a brain fart or selfishly he wanted to get the empty net, but you got to chip the puck out, son. I mean, the challenge in Big Q's failing to chip the puck out is why they lost the series.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me say one more point. When do you remember a team, if they played 18 periods, right, 6 times 3, and then maybe over to 19, they won 14 of them and lost in 6.
It was a really strange series because, like you said, the Kings were utterly dominant most of the series. And yet, starting in Game 5, there was never any doubt Edmonton was winning that series. Like there was just you knew Edmonton was going to win Game 5. You knew they were going to rout them in Game 6. Like you could feel it coming a mile away. And listen, the Kings are on the rise. They're a really good team. That was the worst challenge in coaching history. In all seriousness, it was just inexcusable in my opinion. But I really like that Kings team. They'll be good for a while. Can we please dispel the belief or the notion that Connor McDavid is not like a big game player? Like I know he hasn't won a Stanley Cup. Okay. Like Look at what he's done in the playoffs the last 3 or 4 years, guys. He literally puts up Lemieux and Gretzky numbers, okay? Like nobody else is doing that. McKinnon's not doing that. Matthews isn't doing that. Nobody else. I don't know if he can do it for 3 more rounds. I tend to doubt it because I just think his team is too flawed. But can we give him some credit? This is unbelievable what he and Draisaitl were doing in the postseason the last 3 years.
He was incredible in that series. He played like Yager.
Yeah.
In that series, just like somebody else kind of did down in Texas the other night. But I also think Janmark came through. I think that Kane pulled the Kucherov. He played great after coming in. He played great. Old man Perry playing top line minutes. Yeah. Frederick played good. Their underlings, or not the other guys, not the core 2 guys, played well. They played well. I mean, I got to hand it to them.
Yeah. I don't think they're a good team, the Oilers. But and I'll mention this whenever we get into other teams. But I always feel like there's the loser body language, and it doesn't come in. But once it sets in a series, you can tell a team's going to lose, and it just felt like the Kings had it after Game 4. It was just done.
We're forgetting about Jean-Luc Picard steering the Starship in that 4 wins in a row against a Vezina Trophy finalist. Wow. I mean, if Skinner was still in that, they would have lost. That's a ballsy move by that. Edmonton, that guy just outcoached Hiller infinitely.
Oh, no, there's no question. He did.
I thought that guy was more of a Dave Hackstall type coach than a ballsy coach. So I give hats off to him for doing that.
Yeah. And Edmonton, listen, Edmonton is not the favorite to come out of the West, not the favorite to win the cup, but they're kind of an X factor in the playoffs. They can beat anyone. I don't know if they could win 4 series in a row, but there's no team that's more uncomfortable to play against than them because they just have 2 players that you can't stop. Like you need to score at least 4 goals a game to beat them. Now, they're so bad defensively, their goaltending so bad, a good team might be able to do that. But that puts a pressure on you right away because you're not completely shutting those 2 down. So they're the strangest team in the playoffs, but I was totally fascinated and seduced by watching that series. That was just a wild series. I loved it.
They spotted the team with the best home record in NHL 4 goals in Game 1, and then almost won.
Yeah, I mean
that's how great McJesus is.
Yes.
He literally he was giving up 2 goals. He gave him 2 goal leads. It was like here, yeah, you can start out. You can have as many goals as you want. I'm gonna start playing in the 3rd.
Yeah, and it makes me so mad that Edmonton won that draft because if he's with almost any other organization, he probably has 2 cups under his belt at this point.
Yes.
The Vegas Golden Knights in the Minnesota Wild. We got to see Marc-Andre Fleury go in that one more time for the 3rd period, which was fantastic. Outside of Pittsburgh, Las Vegas is probably the city that it was most appropriate for it to happen.
Yes.
So it was great to see Flower get his well-deserved flowers. What did you guys think? I mean, Minnesota really after games 3 and 4, I thought, oh man, like the Knights are on their heels. I don't know what's going to happen here. And then the Knights firmly took control. What did you guys think of the series?
They did. I thought Minnesota was better in the first 4 games, quite honestly. They're a different team with Kirill. I mean, that as we said last week, he is a superstar. He changes everything about them. But I also would give Vegas credit for what they did in games 5 and 6. That was just a very professional effort from them. All right. They don't have any weak links. Like they are just solid. And I thought they just slowly took the life out of Minnesota. They didn't look phased at all by the pressure, Joe. Like it's going to be hard to beat them in a best of 7 series. They're a little under the radar.
That was a perfect word, Josh. It was a professional performance.
That's what they are. Yeah.
Yeah. They just shut it down. Game 5, game 6, and they won. Can't give enough praise to Kirill. That's why he's in the short list of Hart Trophy guys.
Oh, yeah.
His play in January, February, like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. He was scoring like a goal a night, it seemed like. Then he was gone away. But how about his whole line was great? Some other guys, Boldy played well. Zuccarello played. Hartman played well. Their goaltender Gustafson played well. You know, you have to give them a lot of credit. They really came in limping, and they really turned it on. But I also think, I don't know if they took him a little bit for granted, but it did seem like in game 4, I believe, or maybe 3, numbers are messing me up right now. But Eichel and Stone just like, oh yeah, we got to win this series now. And then Jack just came out and just showed him who's boss. And him and Detective Mark Stone, a really great performance by those guys. And just overall, they just have big thumping defensemen. So that's what's going to be fun. I wonder if Petrangelo's going to try to break Leon's arm in this series too. Because I thought that and my buddy Fraser back here remembers, my puck-off co-host remembers, I was incensed for a month and a half about that. I don't know how you can get away with trying to break the arm of arguably the second best player on earth.
Yeah, that was awful. Vegas knows how to beat Edmonton. They beat them 2 years ago, I think it was, in the second round. It was a good series. I don't know if it's the best matchup for the Oilers. I feel like Vegas kind of has a little bit of a blueprint for how to beat them. They have all those good defensive forwards, which I think helps a lot against a team like Edmonton. Is your blue line, and Vegas has a really good blue line. I don't care how good it is. Your blue line needs some help when you're dealing, especially with McDavid. And when you've got guys like Stone, who are among the best defensive forwards in the game, and they have other guys who are really good defensively, I think that helps. But I think it's a fascinating series. I think they're completely different style teams. Sometimes, styles make the fight, right? And I think it will be a really, really good series. It strikes me as a 6 or 7 gamer off the top of my head, quite frankly.
You said it best, Josh. And so it's a wild card situation. You have no idea what's going to happen because of what Jesus can do.
Right.
And Leon, for that matter.
Yeah, I think Vegas is better. I could see Edmonton winning the series just because of those guys. But top to bottom, Vegas is a much better team. I think they're a better coach team. I think they're just better built top to bottom, no doubt.
Well, so were the Kings, except for coaching.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah. I feel like Vegas is just a slightly more advanced version of the Kings. They play a pretty similar style. I think Vegas is just a little bit better.
Yes.
Well, the Kings definitely have younger, faster, more puck-moving defensemen, whereas the Vegas leans towards the thumpers. Which just seems like every team is doing right now. Your bottom pair is just some big guys that get in the way, which has been working for teams.
Yeah.
No, it has.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting series, and like you said, it's anybody's game. So now I'm going to hold you guys to it. Who do you have, Vegas or Edmonton?
I will go Vegas in 7. I think it's a great series. It could go either way, but I just think they know how to beat them. I think they know how to slow them down just enough. I will give them the nod, but I don't do so confidently.
I will say Vegas in 7 as well.
Yeah, and for the lack of sounding, I don't want to sound like I'm repeating everybody, but Vegas in 7, exactly what you said, Josh. They're like an advanced version of the Kings.
Just a little bit better. They won't get rattled.
I think that might do it. Now, out east, we had Toronto escape. By the way, I'm glad you guys didn't blast me for the text. I texted Josh and Joe in our thread with there 3 minutes to go and the Ottawa Senators tie game 6, and I text and say Toronto's gonna blow it. Literally refresh my phone and it's 3-2 Toronto. Like, oh, never mind. But they escaped by the skin of their teeth, and boy, oh boy, was there some puckering going on up in Toronto, wasn't there?
There absolutely was, but let's give credit where credit is due. The core guys came through. Austin Matthews scored a power play goal. Prince Willie had 2 goals. And Max Pacioretty, who some people in Toronto are like, why don't they play Robin? Why don't they play Robertson? Why don't they play Camp? He's stuck with Max Pacioretty for the big body, and he's been in a lot more playoff games than anyone else in that roster. He came through with the big goal. Hats off to the Chief. Hats off to Toronto. And enjoy the next 14 days because then it'll be all over.
Yeah, and I know Joe was so happy to see Mr. Giroux and the Senators finally bow out.
Bye.
Toronto's fine. Like, everyone had a freak out because it was 3-2. All of a sudden, they lost 2 games. It's the playoffs. Like, these things happen. I actually thought they composed themselves perfectly well, even when Ottawa came back to tie the game. Yeah, they're fine. They're okay. They're a really good team. Do I think they're good enough to beat Florida? No, not really. But that's not a knock on Toronto. Like, I thought they played pretty well against Ottawa. They were very clearly the better team. And I do think having Berube behind the bench does make them more threatening. I think they needed somebody like him, just the toughness that he comes with, the respect that I think he comes with. So they're a formidable team. They just, happen to be playing against a team now that looks, and we'll get into that series next, I guess, the Florida Panthers. I would not want to play them in a best-of-7 series, Joe.
No, I would not. One more thing about the Chiefs, though. Just calm. I listen to Toronto media constantly. Every press conference is the same. Everything's okay. We're doing what we're doing here. Just keeping the ship steady. And that's what that franchise needs. And he's won his cup, so he's not nervous. It was just a perfect coaching hire. Just like Sullivan probably is for the Rangers.
Yeah, I agree.
I saw somebody put that on Twitter. They showed what's his name, Mark Savard, who's an assistant coach with them, and they said, "Look, it looks like Mark Savard learned from Berube not to celebrate goals."
I saw that.
I thought that was a very astute point because, you just got to never get too high or too low. Josh, you covered the Florida and Tampa Bay series for The Athletic, so you got an up close and personal look. I was wrong. I thought Tampa was gonna, wear out the Panthers, and it looked like it was the other way.
Yeah, the Panthers really fooled me. I didn't like how they looked during the last month or so of the regular season. They had the look of a team that had, been to the final 2 years in a row, and they looked tired. They looked fatigued. They had a lot of injuries. That's kind of how it happens, right? And Tampa was playing great hockey, and they had the most goals in the National Hockey League, and Kucherov had this incredible season, and I picked Tampa, and I was wrong. And I knew I was wrong, guys, after the first period of game 1. I looked at the guy sitting beside me in the press box. I said, Jesus, Florida just flipped the switch. I mean, it was just so obvious to me that they had just been kind of lying in the weeds, waiting for the playoffs to come. And it's only the great teams that can flip the switch. And this is a great team. You don't win the cup and get to the final 2 years in a row and then dispatch of Tampa the way they did in the first round without being a great team. What I love about Florida, like, they can beat you so many different ways. They've got the Hall of Fame goaltender. They'll beat you up if it's that kind of a series. They're bigger and tougher than anyone. They'll win a 2-1 game. They're very comfortable. They're so good defensively. They can outscore you too. And they're scoring depth. They've got Lundell and Marchand on their third line. Like, that's what makes them scary. You got those two on your third line. You've got Tkachuk and Bennett on your second line. You've got Barkov and Reinhart on your first line. Joe, there's a reason they've won the cup and they could win it again.
Yes, I feel like an idiot for thinking that Tampa was going to win that series. But what really happened in Tampa's place was Vasilevsky just looked like bad Vasilevsky, and Bobrovsky played great. It just looked like even before Hagel was not in the series anymore, it just looked like Tampa was a guy or two short.
Yes.
When all the lines rolled, the Florida Panthers just had way too much. And how about the Rat fitting right in on the third line? Yeah. Him and Lundell were just up ice, chance after chance. Just an absolute great move to get him for a second draft pick, which is nuts. Tkachuk pulling the Kucherov, stepping right in, looking amazing. Barkov's Barkov. I love my Sammy Bennett. He's a free agent doobie. Wouldn't he be nice to come in? But and how about my man Carter Verhaeghe? All he does is throw daggers in the playoffs. And also, I got to point out Seth Jones. Seth Jones looked kind of washed up or disinterested in Chicago. Now he looks like the $9.5 million guy, Seth Jones. What a trade! I mean, you got to give it to the front office. And I love Maurice. And they just put on an absolute clinic. And I apologize for thinking you'd be tired. You're just warming up.
I'm glad you mentioned Jones. Man, was he good in that series. I mean, every game he was good. He's physical. He still moves the puck really well. Maybe he's not a superstar, but he's a good player. He's really good, and he fits right in. Paul Maurice, I don't think there's a better coach in hockey today. I don't think there's a better GM than Bill Zito. I mean, you look at the team that they've put together, and like I said, Marchand on the third line. I love Lundell. I think he is such a good player. For that kid to be a third line center, man, the depth is. They've got Erod on their fourth line. He's a good player. Like he's fit in really well there. He can't get in the top 9. That's just the kind of depth that team has. So I mean, listen, anything can happen. It's the playoffs, and the wheels can always come off because they've played a lot of hockey. But I'm not so sure after what I saw in the first round that they're not the favorite to win the whole thing.
The only way they're not able to win the next round is if really the core 4, the big boys, really do play like superstars. They play like Sid and Gino. They play like that Rantanen. That's the only way that they're gonna win because Florida's just a machine. And
they are. I mean,
yeah, not enough guy. I mean, I think Matthews played really well for him. I'm happy for him, but I still haven't seen a guy that would throw his mother off a bridge like Maurice has 18 of those guys.
He really does. That's the thing about that team. They are a machine, and they are menacing. They will, if they have to take you out, they'll take you out. They don't really, they'll do so very respectfully. But I don't really consider them a dirty team. But they've got some guys who aren't afraid to go over the edge. I mean, I don't think Maurice coaches them that way. But that's just a tough, fierce hockey team. And watching them in person for 5 games, I grew to appreciate how brilliant defensively they are. Like Kucherov was so bad in Game 5. Like they were in his head. He was forcing passes that weren't there. He was throwing tantrums on the bench. Like they were driving him absolutely crazy. That's just, man, they are going to be a hard team for anyone to beat.
The only guy that played good on Tampa was Jake.
Yeah, Jake did what Jake does in the play. And you know why? Jake was going to the net and taking a beating. I'm watching Kucherov. He's dancing around the blue line, trying his behind-the-back passes. And, he wasn't willing to make the sacrifices, in my view, that Jake Ensel was willing to make, no doubt.
Yeah. And did you guys see the clip of Maurice? I think it was from a year ago. I can't remember. I think it was last year. And he's sitting there. They were up 3-1, I think, against the Bruins in the playoffs. And he's screaming at his guys on the bench saying, enough with the plays. I want you guys dumping it and taking it out on their D so that they're exhausted in Game 7. And I'm like, man, like I want to run through a wall for that guy. That's that had my juices flowing. So what do you guys have in Toronto versus Florida? What were your predictions?
I'm going to go Florida in 6. I'll give the Leafs some credit. I think they might put up more of a fight than many are expecting, but I just can't see them beating Florida, Joe.
I'm going chalk with Josh again. I'm going
against the grain, and I'm picking the Leafs in 7.
Wow.
And there's one reason why. The third time through typically ends in the second round.
That is true.
It's a great point.
The round that it catches up to people, because even think about 2018 after against the Flyers, it was like, man, the Penguins are on a roll again. Here we go. So
plus Cory, you look like a genius if they win, because we can now reference it. Cory called it. Everyone else is in Florida, so I like that.
And if Florida wins, then nobody mentions it, and
That's
we
right.
just move on like it never happened. So the game everybody was talking about, because I'll save the Caps in Carolina for last because nobody cares about that. But the Dallas-Colorado game last night, I mentioned earlier, you can see when the loser body language hits. And I felt like at about the 10-minute mark last night, like, oh boy, Colorado looks like they've got the loser body language. And conversely, Dallas went to a whole other level at the end of that game. And we were kind of on Rantanen a little bit, not fitting in Dallas after coming from Carolina. And boy, do I look stupid for saying that. Joe, what did you think of that Game 7, first of all, and then the series in general?
The series in general lived up to everything I wanted it to be. It was, Dallas is going to win the West, in my opinion. They're only going to get one of the top 5 defensemen on earth back, and their leading scorer, Jason Robertson. So that's my pick anyway. But this incredible hockey. The Avs show them balls, winning Game 6. I love that. taking the 2-0 lead. And I will say this I was at the Ice House last night, so I listened to the game in the parking lot for a little bit. And on the national feed on Sirius was the Dallas Stars guys, and I love the Razor Daryl Rayo. He's a great color guy, and the play-by-play guy's great. They were getting me. I was sweating in the car just before the opening drop of the puck, and I got to watch the first and second periods at the Ice House, or I missed some of it. I was on stage, but then I was going to go to the local tavern and have a beer and watch the third period. Fraser Smith, the great Fraser Smith, called up and said, "Hey, Anthony Jeselnik, Pittsburgh connection, he canceled. Come down to the Improv, take his spot." They said they love me at the Improv, which is nice. Yeah, send Bartnick down. So I'm speeding in a driving rainstorm to get to the Ice House. To get to the Improv. I can only listen to the game. And there's something about the theater of the mind to hear a hockey game. And it was just insanity. And then so I watched the highlights. It was even better to see it than I could even imagine how dominant Mikko Rantanen was. And you can just say that's payback for treating him like dirty laundry. The man wanted to stay. You thought you were geniuses. You missed him. He came back to bite you.
Yeah, listen, that's one of the great first round series ever. The quality of play was unreal. The part of me feels for Colorado and McKinnon and Makar because they're so great. They are, and that stings for them going out in the first round. But that will forever be the Mikko Rantanen game. He had 7 points in the last 5 periods of this series. And Cory, he wasn't very good in Dallas for the first month. He wasn't he was not playing at the level that anybody was expecting. Then all of a sudden it showed up. And I will tell you about Rantanen. He's a very well-liked guy around the league. I've talked with people who are, who played with him, who are close with him, and they don't have nice things to say, especially about the way Carolina treated him. And some of the stuff Brenda Moore said after he left, that did not go over very well around the league for a lot of people. So good for Mikko. I think the Stars are the favorite in the West as well, Joe. I was just blown away by how spectacular that series was. And there's a lesson here. There's a lesson for teams. If you're a cup team like Colorado and you have a guy who's going to walk, don't fall into that trap of saying, well, got to trade him and get something for him at least. No, try to win the Stanley Cup that year. If he walks, he's making $8 or $9 million a year, whatever. Use that money and go find someone else in free agency. Don't hurt your Stanley Cup chances. And I like Marty Necas. He's a nice player. He's not Mikko Rantanen. And I think we all learned that in this series. Yeah.
Rantanen was one of the best 3 wingers in hockey, and now he just put himself up. He's number 1 with a bullet. And also Ottinger came through because Ottinger has a little, has a little Hollaback in him, a little bit, not as much, but that was a big series for him to overcome. And the other thing is McKinnon is still incredible. Oh. When he would get on the ice, it was just like, oh my God.
No, he's that's it. That's my biggest thing with the Avs being out. I just like watching them play. They're just so much fun to watch. With all due respect, Dallas is a great team. They're fun to watch. They're not as fun to watch as Colorado, just because of McKinnon and Makar. That you never know what they might do. But that you talk about a series that lived up to the billing. The Battle of Florida really didn't, just because the Panthers made it look so easy.
Right.
Dallas and Colorado, that was a spectacular series.
And Wyatt Johnson, he's got some Brian Rust in him. That guy, all he does is score big goals. That's why I said, why is he on the third line again? You got to get him up there. I love that kid.
He's 21 years old.
Yeah, the Stars are shining brightly.
And think about this: the historic precedent of Rantanen's performance. There were 2 times, and I believe 2, maybe 3. I forget exactly what the stat was. 2 or 3 times in NHL history that somebody had 4 points in a playoff period, and he did it in Game 5, and then he did it in the third period of Game 7.
Yeah, and listen, Dallas was not very good in the first 2 periods last night. Colorado was very much in control of that game. It was just amazing to me how they just kind of turned it on, and man, before you know it, everything had changed. And much like I think Florida's the favorite in the East, I don't think there's any question Dallas is the favorite in the West.
How about Pete DeBoer, 9-0 in Game 7s? He's been recycled a few times, Doobie.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that amazing? He's never won a Stanley Cup, but he's 9-0 in Game 7s. How the hell is that possible?
I know.
And by the way, just the live update, St. Louis and Winnipeg are now on their way to double overtime. So we've got a 15-minute intermission.
We're going to have to wrap this up in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
No way I'm not watching this.
We're going to be too distracted. We've got a classic going on in Manitoba, clearly.
Yeah. But no, Pete DeBoer, he's great at many things, winning Game 7s and standing on the bench in the right spot. For those of you that know.
I know where you're going there.
But yeah, all I could think about was, thank God we pulled out Game 6 in San Jose. Could you imagine? Like, I didn't know he was the killer in Game 7.
Although Sullivan taught us how to win Game 7s, which we couldn't do until we got Sully.
Great point.
Among the other things Sully did for our franchise.
So whether or not Winnipeg or St. Louis pull this out, it sounds to me like everybody's thinking Dallas. Do you have, if it's one St. Louis or Winnipeg, do you think it goes longer or shorter?
I think it goes longer if it's St. Louis, because I think St. Louis has way more balls and is feistier. I just don't think, I'm just not impressed. Winnipeg to me is Carolina. Their roster is good. They play hard. Okay. This is the big boys. If there's anything I've learned I'm really going to remember it this time. The playoffs are a different season. And especially the guys that know it's a different season show up for it.
That's true. I would be shocked if Dallas lost to either of those teams. I think St. Louis is playing better than Winnipeg right now. Winnipeg might have a higher ceiling than St. Louis. They have more skill, but I like Dallas in 5 against either one, quite honestly.
I have a question too. I like them in I like Dallas in 5. I like them in 6 against St. Louis. 5 against Winnipeg. I'll mix up for a second. I have a question. Is Scheifele dead? Why is he not playing? I mean, that's the lamest. That's the lamest. He got hit hard. This is Game 7.
I know. If he has a concussion, to say he has a concussion, I don't know. It's a very good question.
What about Connor Hellebuck? Good Lord.
He's got a chance to redeem himself now in 15 minutes. But
hey, Sully, I want Ottinger at the Olympics.
Yeah, seriously, I know who I want playing in Italy in February. It's not Connor Hellebuck.
No,
his save percentage is like something like 819.
Yeah,
Trump won't let Hallerbeck go to
executive order.
Yeah, executive order. Hallerbeck's not our goaltender. Yeah. He'll be down in whatever prison.
Yeah, we should. I know, Joe. I know you got to run. We should do quick predictions. I guess at Carolina, Washington. Who you got, Joe?
I got Washington in 5. I love Protus is back. I thought Montreal would give him a scare. I just don't think Carolina is that good. I mean, Jersey kind of stinks, and they barely beat them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Wash in 6. I think. I wasn't a believer in the Capitals even before the playoffs began, but they showed me something against Montreal. Montreal was a feisty little team, and they just brushed them aside like they were a gnat. They're just so physical and so deep. This Capitals team is going to be interesting. Boy, would I love to see Caps Florida in the conference final. You talk about a big boy series. Oh boy, would that be good stuff.
I'll say this though, Josh. Montreal is feisty, and they had I'm spaced on his name now. The guy who was in Columbus. Are they Josh Anderson?
Oh,
and
yeah.
they have Wi-Fi. Who does Carolina have? Jordan Martinook? No.
No, you're right. I just
Tommy's gonna be running wild. It'll be like Tommy Wildfire Rich.
Is he ever?
Yeah, the Caps. I think the Caps do win. Their big boy test is going to be in the next round. Carolina just I'm so bored by them. I feel so the real loser. The New Jersey Devils might have lost that series, but the real loser of that series was anybody that had to watch it. My brother-in-law is a Devils fan. I've mentioned before, and he went to the one they won in overtime, so Game 3 or something like that. And he was like texting me. He's like, "Yeah, I mean, we just don't even have our good guys." And I'm like, "The Devils don't have good guys? Like, I know they do, you know what I mean? But it's like the Devils never have talent. So if the New Jersey Devils have lost their talent, guys, like
Carolina's just boring. They can't help it. That's just who they are.
No, but like I thought Brad played pretty good. The Heischer played great, and Timo Meyer played really good.
Oh, if they have Jack Hughes, they're a different team. No doubt.
Jack Hughes, Quinn Hughes, Luke Hughes, and they really missed. They missed the Polish kid on defense. I mean, they were limited, and they still barely won. And first of all, Tommy's just going to breathe on Hans Christian Andersen, and that fairy tale is going to go away. Then they'll be bringing in that Russian guy that's just going to want Ovi's autograph. There's no way Washington. That's a stone cold lock to me that Washington is winning that series. Because I felt bad for the Devils. They were just undermanned. They were just too hurt. Carolina barely won that game.
Yeah. And Joe, I think I have an idea. Marking it down right now. When the Carolina Hurricanes come to Pittsburgh next year, we're going to get T-shirts made that say regular season Rod. And last year I thought, we'd wear them to the game. Let's go to the game and give them to everybody in the first row around the rink. So everybody on the glass has a regular season Rod shirt.
But let's make it cartoonish so it looks like he has like ripped abs and big chest and shoulders. So it's like like one of those T-shirts that looks like it's like you worked out, you have abs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it because that's going to be our first merch for the show.
Get a Flyers logo on there too, just for fun, just to go back to his playing days.
Yeah.
Oh my. Well, that'll do it for us, guys. We appreciate all of you listening, and we appreciate those of you that stuck through the technical difficulties and helped us out. And hey, go watch Double Overtime. We'll see.
Yeah, you got a few minutes.
Yeah. I want to thank Bill Neofus. Always, I'm going to thank Cory and Josh, and I'm going to say, Cory, a great job producing the show. It was a mess at the beginning, and you pulled it out. A kick save and a beauty. So stick taps to Cory.
No doubt. Joe, have a good show tonight, and everybody enjoy Double Overtime Game 7. Doesn't get much better than that.
I should mention, somebody had put out, hey, Joe, they can't wait to see you in Connecticut in a couple weeks. So if you're in Connecticut, go check out
fans in Connecticut. I like
it. I'm nationwide, I'm worldwide, baby.
All right, guys, enjoy it. Enjoy Overtime, and Joe, enjoy your show.
Thank you.
All right, see everybody.